the subject for this session is using the mobile device to facilitate and augment cooperative and collaborative learning. And we have 3 faculty members with us who have used mobile devices, all as part of an M-Learning Scholars cohort in order to implement cooperative and collaborative learning with their students. So we're just going to hear about their experiences. And starting off will be Sam Matson from Geosciences, and following him Alicia Garza from Spanish, and then Nicole Malumbi from music.
Thanks. Well, thank you all very much for the opportunity to talk to you today. The tool that I'd like to talk to you about is called Doceri. It's an app that you can use on a mobile device that pairs with a desktop software application too. And basically what it does is it turns your iPad into an interactive whiteboard, so you can control your desktop computer, you can draw on the slides, you can do a lot of the things that a whiteboard would do, but do that with your iPad. And the way that I've been using it primarily in my large lecture classes for the geosciences is to engage students by allowing them to draw on slides. So one of the things that we do in those big classes is to try to help students see through the lens of the geologist. And the things that we see as geologists a lot of times different than what you might see if you're looking at the same picture or the same outcome. So just as an example, I might start off with an in-class activity like this. So this is a field photo of the rock outcrop that's in Minnesota, and just ask students what they see. And so I'll give you guys the opportunity to do that right now. You can chat with your neighbor for a minute or two, and just talk about what you see in this picture, and then try to figure out what the relevant observations are. Right? What are the things that mean the most to a geologist? So take a minute or two and take a look at this picture. So you've had a chance to look at the slide. There's a lot of things going on in this slide. But what are some observations that you've made of this picture?
Somebody dropped a length marker.
Yeah, somebody dropped something in the picture. Almost all the pictures that I show in my classes have something like that, or a lot of times I'm accused of showing these slideshows about what my rock hammer did on summer vacation. Because we always put something in there for scale. So it's a scale bar. The smaller lines are in centimeters. So it just gives you a sense of how big these features are. And anytime I show a family picture of my class, my family thinks I'm taking a picture of them, but they're actually in the picture for scale. All right. So what are some other observations that you made? Yeah.
I guess it strikes me that it's a really rather intricate water delivery system. I'm interested in the way it's delivering water along the various levels of the rock.
Okay, so what do you mean by that? Actually, I'm going to bring the iPad back here, and you can use a pointer on the iPad to point out exactly what features you're talking about, so that everyone can see.
Maybe that I'm just not seeing it very well from this distance. But
so you should be able to just use your finger to point out whatever features you're talking about here. There you go.
Yeah. So I'm kind of interested in the way it seems like water is being moved down here. And again,
so yeah, if you drag your finger on the iPad, it'll fall there. Yep, this is Doceri. So right now I'm running the app on my iPad. It will show you what's on the screen. So So you're pointing out that it looks like there's water coming out from the bottom.
Right. And then it's coming down, see how it's almost like a maze sort of mouse would run through or something, is what it looks like to me.
Okay, good. That's a good observation. Any other observations that people have made?
So there's layers going this way and that way and that way.
Okay, so I'm going to let you use the iPad to try to trace some of those layers. So now you should be able to draw on top of the slide using the iPad.
So I'm looking at this section versus this section versus this section.
Okay, and so with this trial version, which is what I have on my desktop right now, it won't let me save these pictures, but if you pay the $50 for the desktop version, you can save any of these pictures and play them back as a video and stop the video at various places. Okay, good. So
Would you pass this around in your class?
yeah, so
How big is your class?
so the classes are typically, is this going to pick up my voice on the video if I'm not in front of the microphone?
Probably better if you're in front of the microphone.
So the classes that I'm teaching are over 100 students. The largest one is maybe 240 students. So when we do an activity like this, I'll go to the back of the classroom and find the student who's totally not paying attention. Have them draw the picture on the slide.
And then kind of we pass it forward as
Yeah,
we go?
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's some of this stuff you could probably do with a laser pointer, from the back of the room. But here you can actually draw on the slides too. So who saw that these features here, these lines, you can sort of see the lines running down like this? One other person noticed those? Okay, so as a geologist, those are the things that I would clue in on. Right? Those are the things that, for the type of geology I do, those were the feature that I would pay the most attention to. But there's other things going on here. So one of the, it doesn't let me save the drawings because it's the trial version. But one of the things I try to get across in my classes are the ABCs of geology. You can ignore all the text here except for this. So in the history of rocks can form in some sort of environment. They can be deformed and then they're sculpted. And so a lot of those holes that look like water conduits that you're seeing are actually step C of these ABCs of geology, the thing that catch our eye the most usually. But those other lines are the features that we would clue in on. Those are something called crossbeds. This is a cartoon from the textbook of how crossbeds form. And so I wanted to show you a short video of these crossbeds forming and show you how they're useful. And this is the point here is just to illustrate that Doceri can draw on anything that's on your desktop. It doesn't have to just be PowerPoint. So I think within PowerPoint itself, you can draw on PowerPoint slides and save the drawings. But with Doceri, it can be anything on your desktop, a map, a video, anything. So here is a video from a flume. This is a big sandbox that has water running through it. So geologists can do all sorts of experiments to see how these different features form. Okay, so in this video, the flow is going from your left to your right. And can you see this point? So let's stop it right here. And go back to the Doceri. And in a second, I'll show you what the iPad view looks like here and show you how you can zoom in and out. But you can draw on top of this video also. So I want you to pay attention to this crest right here and see what happens through time. And if I had the paid version, I would be able to save this so that you have this control point and you'd be able to compare it. So we'll clue in on that spot and see if the video plays for me again. Okay. So these ripples, this is what these are, they migrate sort of like tank treads. They move through time, and those little lines that you were clued in on are things that can indicate the past current direction. And so if you're wondering what direction the river was flowing, you can use those crossbeds to tell you something about it. So they're sort of subtle here. You see those diagonal lines that are pointing down to your right? Here, those are crossfit. So as a preview for Thursday, I'll show you this slide here. So this is a picture showing modern ripples. And actually, I should point this out first. Okay, so with ripples that form in a current that's flowing in one direction, there's typically one side of the ripple that's steeper than the other. So these are called current ripples, and this side, the downstream side, has a steeper slope than the upstream side. So if we go back to this other picture here, right, what direction do you think the current was flowing that made these ripples? Some people doing this motion here.
Yes.
Right, so in my classes, we could actually ask this as a clicker slide, and that's what we'll illustrate on Thursday. So there's a responseware app that you can use on your mobile device that behaves like one of these clickers that are basically like the poll the audience tool that they use on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So we can actually ask the students this question and look at the results and have them draw on the slide as well.
What program did you use?
I use for the clickers. I use Turning Technology. It's called Turning Point, and the mobile app is called Responseware. So anyway, so I'll just show you a quick view of what the iPad view looks like here for Doceri, and then I'll open it up for any questions you might have. One thing you need to make sure of is that your iPad and your computer are on the same wireless network. So that's how they're communicating, and so that it can work from hundreds of feet away because they're working wirelessly. So up on the upper right here, there are three options. There's one that looks like a mouse, and one that looks like a little crayon, and then the pointer finger. So right now it's on the pointer option, and I can bring back that arrow that we saw on the other slide. With the mouse tool, I can actually control the desktop. So if I can zoom in, let me. So let's say I want to start my PowerPoint show. So now it's showing me what's on the desktop view. What you would see if I was projecting from the desktop is just the full slide. And zooming in and out is only happening on the iPad. And so if I want to advance the slide, I can click just how I would with the desktop version of PowerPoint. Advance to those slides. And then the crayon tool is what you can use to do the drawing. You can change the colors, you can change the thickness of the line, you can make dash lines, there's a whole bunch of different options you can do. And one way I'd like to use this in the future is for desktop lecture capture. If you're interested in flipping the classroom, instead of using class time to just stand up in front of the students and lecture, you can record short 20 or 30-minute lectures ahead of time, have the students do that passive learning at home on their own time, and use the class time for engaging the students in activities. So Doceri would be really useful for that because you're not just limited to what you can do with PowerPoint on your desktop. You can actually draw on the slides, and anything that I draw on the slides here, I can play back as a movie. So you can set control points. So let's say you make one drawing and you want the movie to advance to that first drawing. Here you can speed it up if you want. And so you can do all these drawings and illustrations ahead of time, record the voiceover, record the rest of the desktop lecture, and then post that as a video capture lecture that the students can watch at home, rather than just listening to you drawn on in the classroom, like I'm doing now. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you also use Doceri while you're using Turning Point and draw on the clicker slides?
Yep. Yeah. The question was, can you use the iPad, use Doceri at the same time as you're doing Turning Point? And the answer is yes. Right? So basically all you're doing with Doceri is you're just controlling anything that you could normally do with the desktop. So you can advance the slides, you can The clicker responses are going to be either recorded by the receiver if the students are using clickers like this, or wirelessly if they're using the mobile version. So,
Anyway, I have a question. There's a splash top or something like that that controls computers from your iPad. How is that different from those areas?
Oh, a couple of different ways that it's different. If you're looking at just being able to sort of use your iPad to remote into a computer, and that's really what you're concerned about is the control function. Splashtop is a little bit better for that because it doesn't require that you be on the same network as the computer you're trying to control. So you can be at home and remote into your computer in the office, or vice versa. Whereas you can't do that with Doceri, but Splashtop doesn't have any of the annotation features and screen recording and things like that Doceri does. So if you're saying I'm using this in the classroom where I'm wanting to roam around the room and I can be on the same network, but I just what I'm using it for is wanting to kind of have these additional features, then Doceri is better. So it depends on what the application, what you're trying to achieve.
Is there a limit to how many machines you could connect to? So, like, I regularly use a Mac laptop, but in the classroom where I regularly teach is a PC. And so I'm wondering if I could potentially connect to both of those.
yeah, you can connect to one computer at a time, but you can have a
But
whole
I
list
just
of different
toggle through
computers.
different.
Yep, and so it's any computer that you've connected to previously, it saves that information, saves the IP address. So if you're always teaching in the same classroom, it'll just bring that up in your menu.
Yeah.
You can connect right to that pretty easily. But you can have several different computers in that list. You can just connect to one of them at a time. So I've talked with the rep for Doceri, and it sounds like in the new version that's coming out, it's supposed to come out this year, but I haven't seen anything about it yet. You can actually, rather than having to go to the back of the classroom with your iPad and have the students join, you can actually throw the control to their iPad. So if they have their own mobile device, you can throw the control right to them. And you can have multiple iPads reading the screen at the same time. And I think there's a lot of potential there, say for working with low vision students. Right? In a large lecture hall, if they're having trouble seeing the slides, they can have it right there in front of them. And anything that you do on the screen, when you show a video or a map or going back and forth between slides, it's right there in front of them. So that's the next version that's not here yet.
And if you're interested in more about like the specifics of how to use Doceri, tomorrow me and Mijal Martinez, who was here yesterday, Tim Martinez, we're going to do a session on using the iPad as a mobile console where we get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of how to do it. And we're going to have several laptops set up where you can have the chance to take your own iPad and explore that. So one of the homework assignments that you'll get tonight if you want to participate in that session is actually to download the Doceri client that Sam's using, which is free. So Sam mentioned earlier that there's a $50, if you want these additional features and stuff. That's the desktop. There's a thing that has to be installed on the desktop app or on the actual physical computer you're trying to control. And that costs $50 if you want those functions. But the remote for your iPad is free. So we'll give you a chance to play with some of that stuff tomorrow if you want.
So then if they did come out with that version later, buy a version, or if they got it?
It's a good question, whether they would give you the update for free. I imagine they would let you do the update, but I have no idea. That would be a question for the Doceri rep, which I'll write that one down. Next time I talk to them, I'll ask them.
I don't know the answer to that any better than Sam does. My guess would be that if you're already using Doceri, there's probably some kind of a reduced price upgrade so that it's not free, but it's not like relicensing Doceri as though you've never had it before.
And I've had the evaluation copy on my desktop for over a year now, and for a lot of applications, if I'm not worried about saving the drawings and stuff, it works fine. I'm sure the Doceri folks don't want me to say that, but the free trial version has worked fine for what I need it for.
As long as you don't need to save the drawings on top of your file, if they're just for demonstration purposes or whatever.
Yep. Yep.
So you have it on your laptop, and you take your laptop and your pad to class every day. Is that
I don't. There's a few sections of the class where this works better than for other sections. If I'm going to be showing a lot of field photos or a lot of things that I would want the students to draw, then I would bring my iPad. In the classroom where I was doing that, they actually installed the Doceri desktop version on the computer in the classroom, so I didn't have to bring my laptop every time.
Which brings another, Sam had mentioned earlier that they have to be on the same network to work. If you log on to Bronco Wireless, it's in most rooms on campus, being logged on to Bronco Wireless is the same as being plugged into the wall. So if your iPad is on Bronco Wireless and the computer is physically plugged into an Ethernet port in the wall, they're on the same network as far as things like Doceri are concerned. Bronco Guest would not work, but Bronco Wireless would.
I'm using Bronco Guest right now because both the iPad and the laptop are on that same network.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Alicia Garza. I'm with Modern Languages and Literatures, and I teach in the Spanish section. And my project, what I use the iPad for is for my senior seminar that's about Mexican women authors. And my students are required to write a 10-page paper, so I use the iPad as a tool for them to take notes, to collaborate, and to send me their research papers. Excuse me, I'm here to talk about the Notability app. I looked at several PDF apps, and some of them ranged from $10 and some were free. And I think this was the best one for my class because it has a microphone. So if you want to record notes to your students, you can do that. And so I'm going to open this up. So my students use this for a variety of projects. And I like it a lot because you can download PDF articles to this and mark them up. For example, so for example, this article, you can go up here and tap on the pencil. You can see the toolbar up here. To the left is where you have your files. The next, it's to your left. Sorry. Where you have your files. The next one you can see, send an email. You can send this whole PDF document to somebody, microphone, and you can erase, and then text, pencil, highlighter, eraser, you can cut it out. So, for example, I want to mark up this article. I can do all sorts of, mark up the important parts. And I want to share it with somebody, so I can send it via email. And so the person who receives this will get it all marked up. They can't change the notes you've written on it, but they can add to it and send it back to you. So some students, what they did so they could understand some articles, they sent them back and forth. They marked up the thesis, they marked up the highlights of the articles, and that helped them understand some of the naughty details of some of the articles they had to read. So they enjoyed that feature. And you'll see a file system here, and my students would change their documents. They would send them to me in a PDF form, all their drafts. And so what I would do, I would mark them up and send them back. So we saved something like 1,000 sheets of paper in that class, just using this. And I love the iPad because I didn't have to carry files and files of drafts all over campus. I just had my tablet with me. And I established files for each one of my students, and that's where I saved all their drafts. For example, this student did something like 4 drafts of her, on top of her 4 drafts that were required, she wrote 4 more, so she wrote like 8 drafts for her research paper, and I have them all here. Her exam, and then this one project that writing project that I required them to do, or I have them do. And on it, what I did was record comments on the paper, so they could turn on the microphone and listen to suggestions, areas that they needed to clarify, and that was very useful. It took a long time because I would listen to my voice and I hated it, so I would start over again and clear my voice. Then my dog would bark or something like that, so I had to go outside and do it, and it was cold, etc. But anyway, that was quite useful. They got the idea of what I expected in the class. And what else? So to create a new note, what you would do is just go into unfiled notes. That's the best section, and tap on there, and that opens up your note area. And you can change this title on the left where it says Note May 22nd, and just erase it and type in whatever you want. And then you can either use, like I mentioned earlier, you could either use the keyboard, and I'm just, oops, sorry. You can use the keyboard, or you can switch, if you like to use the stylus. I use that more than the keyboard. You can use a stylus to write your notes. A lot of students were doing that. They're writing their notes in different colors of pens. They were enjoying that a lot. They could keep their notes, important things written, things that they really wanted to look into some more. And they were able to catalog their notes using colors. And so one project that I had students do, and you got the class plan and one of the documents for this institute, is that I had them do a movie poster. We were reading this novel and not too many of the students liked, and so they weren't wanting to study the characters. They were very reluctant. They yawn and everything. So, like I was telling Nicole, at the last minute, I came up with this little project for them. And so what I did, I had them design a movie poster. The novel is a sci-fi novel. It's written by a Mexican author, and she writes in a male voice. And it's about this author who lives in New York, and he has writer's block. So he lives next door to this man. They live in the Tribeca area. They're wealthy because his wife is a successful lawyer. And their neighbor is a scientist. He comes over and he tells the man, I'm going to insert a chip under your tongue, and you're going to be able to think up whatever novel you want. And so he gets very excited and says, sure. And he goes to his house, which is full of computers, and he gets hooked up to all these wires and starts thinking about the novel. And then his wife brokers a deal with the scientist, and but then at the end, the characters come to life. They invade the brownstone. This is boring. They start killing each other and stuff like that. And that's how the novel ends. But my students didn't like the male voice or the science fiction part. I thought they would love it because it was, high technology, and they were like, this is boring. And so I thought, okay, you're going to design a movie poster, and the instructions are like the ones I gave them. I said, make believe that this production company has contacted you, and they want you to enter a contest on how to design a movie poster for the perfect novel. That's the title in English. In Spanish, it's La Novela Perfecta. And so I gave them details like you choose movie stars to match the characters, you choose music if you'd like, a design, etc. And this is the poster. I had to redo it because I couldn't find my students' posters. And this is the poster I came up with. So okay, that's the bad part about notability. Stuff slides around a lot. So, like you can see, I put letters up there, the title, and who the novel is based on. And for example, my students, these were the most popular characters for the novel. This gentleman up here was an author. And so it's Jorge Salinas. He's this heartthrob, Mexican heartthrob. He's around 40 years old, like the author. They said we picked him because he's a Mexican. I'm like, okay, more than that. And they're like, well, he's kind of a playboy, and he kind of, likes a lot of attention. And so they started talking about the character in depth. And so they started kind of liking the novel a little more because they began to understand it. And then they picked Gwyneth Paltrow because the author's wife, and that's his name throughout the novel, the author. She's blonde, she's an attorney, very thin, very work-driven, very success-oriented, very wealthy. She works for a big law firm that's run by her family. And so they picked her. They said, well, she's thin and pretty. And I said, okay, come on, some more. And they said, well, she travels all over, like the protagonist's wife does. She speaks Spanish. Paltrow speaks Spanish. And so they started making all these connections with, present day things, movies they've seen, and that she looks like a model. And so they figured out the character and connected her to Gwyneth Paltrow. And then they picked Steve Buscemi, who's appeared in lots of independent films, Fargo and Con Air, and things like that. He plays these very interesting characters. So they zeroed in on him, and I said, why? And they're like, because he's weird, not good enough. Well, because he has a mind like he's, okay, not good enough either. And so they went in depth and talked about why they picked him. And so they designed it. Some students added music, and now with Notability, it doesn't have the capacity to pull music out of iTunes. So what they came up with, this isn't my idea, one student had their iPad, turned the microphone on, and another student had their iPad, went into iTunes, picked a song, and played it for them. That, iPhones, it was so interesting where they found free music through LimeWire. They're very resourceful when it comes to music, so they picked music to match the poster. And I'm just going to show you, I picked something by the Thievery Connection, and it's not going to... So they can type music like this, right? Electronic, house music, folk music. So they came up with some music, very, very interesting music. Euro type music. So that's what they did with this project. They enjoyed it a lot. What I had to do is each student had to come to the front in the group, and each member of the group, there was about 4 students, present different aspects of the poster, and almost had to convince us why they picked those characters, authors, why they picked the background, letters, everything. They had to explain the whole poster. And then we didn't do this, but a student suggested this, that they could give a prize for the best poster and give those 4 students extra credit. So they thought that would be a good idea. And but I graded it for participation, all the students, and it was an easy assessment. It was because what I was doing with the iPad, I would have exercises just like this. Okay, everybody gets 5 points. You used your iPad. I did that for a while, and that got students to start liking, enjoying it. And another thing that I did with the groups is I saw there was a lot of resistance, and like I was mentioning to Nicole, there was some students that are very reluctant to use it. So what I did is I formed groups, and in each group, I was lucky I had five students who were familiar with an iPad. So in each group there was a student that they started calling the expert. And this student showed them how to use it, showed them how to cut and paste, showed them how to crop, because with what I like about Notability, okay, you can edit your pictures, you can crop them, or and with some PDF or writing apps you can. So this is a great feature. They really like this part of it, and this is one of the projects they enjoyed the most. There was another one too. Mind maps. They really like doing this with to think about their papers. They started doing these automatically. The first time there was resistance to it. They had done an outline they didn't understand. So I said, okay, you're going to do a mind map. And most students know how to do this, but I had a couple of students go up to the board and draw what a mind map would look like. And so they took information from the outline, drew a mind map, and then they knew which direction they were going to go with their first draft of their paper. This is very helpful. And once again, the majority of students liked all the colors. Some didn't. Some just used black, black color on the pen, and that was okay. I didn't mind that. And then toward the last mind map, I started grading for detail, and which direction they were going to go. And once again, not very hard grading because some students still had some difficulty. I purchased Notability for my students because I wanted to have that one app for them. I didn't know what their economic situation was, so I decided to buy Notability for them and Penultimate. And they use both a lot. There was a couple of students that didn't know that it was a gift to them, but the majority of them loaded it, enjoyed it, used it for other classes, and found it very easy to use, and they liked it better than other PDF apps. And that's about it. Yes?
So how did you get their PDFs and send them?
Oh, okay. How would I get them? Okay, they would email them to me, and what I would do is I could go into my Bronco email and just tap on the PDF, and let me see if, tap on the PDF, and then you get that little menu where you want to read it in, and it shows all your apps, and you tap that. Or some of them would forget and send me a document, and I could open that too because I got this other app, and I won't talk about it too much. Well, sorry to make it wait. No, it's something like Office HP. It's not on here for some reason.
There's a Quick Office HD.
There we go. Quick Office HD. I erased it by accident right now. Anyway, sorry about that. That app, it costs $20. It's spendy, but it'll change your Word documents into PDFs. And so what I would do with that is I would change it into a PDF, but I'd have to mail it to myself and then reload it. But that was good for students. Some students didn't know how to change them into apps, or they had computers that were pretty old that didn't do that, or they had trouble when the student's computer crashed when he tried to do that. So I would do it for them. I didn't mind. It only takes like 2 minutes. Any other questions?
You could do the same with Pages. If you open the Word document Pages, and then you can email it to yourself as PDF. So they've all had Pages as part of their participation. So.
This is it. Sorry. So that was it. These are some that I changed into PDFs, and you can. The only thing is you can't mark them up. You can only read them. It doesn't. That's the drawback of this, that you can't get a pen or, you know, mark it up or a highlighter. But it's a pretty good app for writing small papers. What students enjoy using papers. I had one student who wrote her research paper on it, 10 pages. Another student wrote a couple of drafts, but then started using his laptop because he wanted to fix some things, and Pages didn't have those features. But I asked the student if she had any difficulty. She said no. Some students used this other app. I'll show you. They like this, Quick Office, and some of them use this too. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So in Notability, if you wanted to write really small, could you zoom in so that your handwriting shows up as being very small? Okay.
I think so. We'll try. I write very big, so.
Okay.
I was doing it last night. Well, not
You're
anymore.
talking about the split the screen.
Oh, thank you.
You can zoom in
Oh, yeah, you can do it
so
this
that you can
way.
write at normal size. And yeah.
Yeah, you can do it that way, but you can't, you know, with your fingers.
Okay.
This way you can. Thank you for reminding me of that. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Angry Words looked interesting.
Okay, so thank you. I'm here talking about other ways of collaborating and cooperative learning in the classroom with students. My field is music, which is quite different, but oftentimes our students have to present or perform or work with each other. So hopefully, even though I'm going to show you very specific ways that I use it in the music classroom, I'm going to kind of open it up into a brainstorming activity for us so that you can think of other ways that you can do this. So, these mobile devices lend us to unlimited possibilities in the classroom. So I'm going to talk about how these devices increased ways of collaborating with students back and forth between myself and with them in the freshman ear training class. Ear training is a class that's paired with music theory and class piano. And the ear training, in a nutshell, is I'm at the piano playing, the sound goes into the air, the students have to write it on a piece of paper. So, this is a skill that we in the United States are not trained in before college. Secondly, they have to be able to read music without the piano and sing it perfectly, intervallively. They've been doing this with their instruments, but the instruments control sound for them. They have to now audiate in their head and then produce by their voice. So this is a heavily skill-based class, and the mobile devices really helped me help them quite a bit. So, next here, I'm going to just thread in a little bit of Bloom's taxonomy, which I'm sure you've worked on or thought about if you've done anything with the CTL. And I focused on 3 elements of the higher order thinking in Bloom's taxonomy that increase the quality of peer work that I had already been doing without the iPad. And the 3 in this that I've worked on were applying, creating, and evaluating. And so each of my students worked through these 3 areas. I created 2 methods of student collaboration in the classroom with the iPad. One was a composition assignment, where we used the iPad as a virtual piano lab, and they were able to use Virtuoso Piano, which I'll show you, as well as other musical notation sites to help them audiate, check their work, and then notate. And then the second one was interactive pair work, where I had specific apps, music apps, based in ear training and theory, that I put students together with, sharing earbuds and working through timed quizzes with each other. And I will show you those as well. So these are my students in the music classroom. I'll talk about the small group compositional assignment. So what I did was I assigned students into groups of 2 or 3, and as a class, we set the parameters for the assignment. So, music composition, does anyone know music in here? What time signature? Anyone have time signature? 4/4 time. What key signature? C sharp, major, minor. Major. How many measures?
16.
Let's hope for 6. My students would struggle with 16. Okay, and then we would talk about, is there a pickup note? What note should that start on? We have to end on do, right? Should it be, what is the value? And so we would talk about the parameters. In each class, I have 2 of these classes, we chose the parameters. So then what they did in these small groups was compose. We used specific apps. I led them to Virtuoso Piano, I will show you again. And I was able to then move around the class and check their work and watch them work. So after we did this, I'll show you kind of the learning objectives for the assignment and how the Bloom's elements are threaded through here. So apply intervallic parameters decided by the class to write a melody. Work in small groups. Use mobile device to create and assess group work. Evaluate each melody as a class and practice melodies and solo sing for a grade, which they all did. Okay. So this is, I think what I'll do is I'll go through my little PowerPoint and then I'll show you on the iPad how to use these things, just so you can get a big picture first. So here we are creating. Once the students composed their melodies, I had them put them on the board. And you can see, if you read music, it's in bass clef, it's in E flat major, 2/4, they have a pickup note, they all end on the same note, they had to throw a triplet in there. But music is so endlessly creative that no melodies were the same, even though we all followed the same rules. And so by the end of class, I took my iPhone, because at the time I only had an iPad 1, and I took pictures of each of the melodies and sent them to Dropbox. Students then had a week to practice these vocally, and for their next sightseeing test with me one-on-one, these were the melodies we chose from. So not only did we compose them as a class, they then had to learn them and sing them back to me individually. In the class, the day that we composed these and put them up, we analyzed them. We played each of them. We talked about the not only the technical parameters of the intervals and the rhythms and what was positive or negative, but we also talked about the aesthetic qualities of these melodies, and some of them were fabulous. And when we used the iPad, I've done it. Well, I only had one semester where all my students had iPads. This year, we did not, so it was a slightly different assignment. The aesthetic quality of the melodies jumped quite a bit higher when they had the virtual piano lab in their hands, because they could get instant feedback instead of their developing audiation skills, which were and are a little weak, just because they haven't had the training leading up into university. Okay. Yes. Great. So part of the evaluation was Dropbox. And once we get through the PowerPoint, I'm going to show you how I was able to interface and post these on Dropbox for students to later practice. Yes, and they all sang them. And believe it or not, these melodies are more difficult than what I have in the textbook. I try to follow the parameters of where we are in the textbook, the same types of intervals and time signatures and key signatures, but they get a little creative. More than they realize, because I don't tell them right away that this is now going to be a solo sing grade for them. So once I tell them that, they all kind of jump. Okay, now I'm going to change to the working in pairs. So this assignment, if you remember in like junior high, the teacher would say, okay, now it's time to work on your own for a little bit, and then the teacher would sit there and grade or something, right? We don't have that luxury at the university, at least I don't. I'm up there performing every minute of my class. This was an opportunity for me to give the students a specific app, and within that specific app, a special activity, and then let them work for free in like maybe 5-7 minutes. And then I could either get ready for the next activity, or I was walking around and asking them, how are you doing? Where's your percentage? Did you advance to the next level? How far did you get? So it was a peer practice activity that was really good. Again, I'm moving around the class. And this is then you can see that they're using the virtuoso piano again. I think I have another picture later of them using some specific apps. Here's the learning objectives again for this assignment. Practice specific exercises with a peer. Harmonic and melodic intervallic information. Apply listening tools and skills to the exercises in the apps. We work on these skills in class. And this was a way that they could apply them without me leading them. Because I lead a lot, and the students will often let me do that too much. Use the mobile device, and compare and discuss answers and feedback from the app with a partner. Sometimes the partner would be able to answer very quickly with these sound files that were coming in. The other one was struggling to hear it. They could repeat, they could play it back and forth. I'll show you all of that in a minute. So, right, they were able to listen, compare, interact, answer, check their work, and repeat. This app right here is called Ear Trainer, and even if you have children of your own who take music lessons, I think it's a great app. There's a free version that has just a few exercises, and then the full app is just unlimited. If I could, in my department, I would choose this as my ear training textbook instead of the one. But I can't do that. Not yet. Great. I think before we get to brainstorming as a group, why don't I show you how these apps worked, and then what I'm going to have you do, if we have time. I think we go to 4. Does that sound right? I'm going to have you think of maybe in a partner apps that might work well in your class, and how would you use a specific app in this setting that would help integrate that collaborative work with your students. So let me see if this works. Amazing. You don't have to be, yeah, I got it. You don't have to be brilliant to know how to do this stuff. It's amazing. Okay. So here's my little board for ear training. Let's start with Dropbox. Okay? And here, yeah, cool. So in Dropbox I have for every year that I teach, both semesters, ear training 1, ear training 2. And this assignment is in ear training 2. I have posted homework, which I'm going to be talking about on Thursday, more about how I assess using these devices. But here we're just going to show and talk about our collaboration. So here are all of the melodies posted on the board. And students could read them enough to either transfer them on their own or just practice them straight from here. You can see they're just all posted for them right there. And students, it was interesting. Number one, the first semester I did this, the students all had an iPad. So they used the iPad. This year, not everybody has an iPad. So they still can go to their laptop, their computer, and pull it up on Dropbox. That's the amazing thing about Dropbox. You can still have a mobile environment without every student having that access. And then let me move out of here. And of course, course, this is amazing. You can do a double keyboard, right? And you can't see my hands, but one student could play here and the other could play that way. And so they could check themselves, one playing the harmony of the melody, which we always do, one playing the melody themselves. And if you plug in one earbud and you share it between the two, you can still have all that cacophony of sound in a classroom without interrupting anybody else. So that's pretty cool. Your turn. And I hope the sound works. The sound in just and this. Which jack? Okay, fingertip. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So here is your trainer. And as you know, if you were, this is your first iPad, or if you had an iPhone, iPad, iTouch, whatever, you could just play for hours in the iTunes store. And that's what I did. I just played for hours typing in ear trainer, music theory, singing, and I still do that regularly because things change and there's great things out there. So this app, we will do something that I'm sure all of you can do, chord identification. Look at all of this information here. It's unbelievable. But what we will try is major and minor. So we start the exercise. I hear it, but I don't hear it. Hold on. Oh, cool. Okay. Someone's already ahead of me. There we go. Do you hear it?
Yes.
Major or minor? Raise your hand for major. Raise your hand for minor.
Do it again.
Minor. And we got it right. Yay. Okay, let's do another. It's not doing it. It always does it. How does that happen? Oh, thank you. Major, minor. See, when I touch the green, it plays it again. I can touch, oh, you might not see what I'm touching. See, I'm touching the keyboard right now, and it shows, it interacts on the staff. I can play the minor. And
The buttons kind of flash when you touch them. So.
Yeah, a little bit. I would need the other apps to kind of show. Anyway, the students are able to touch the keyboard, touch the music staff, touch the actual chord written on the staff, and then if you see on the very bottom, 3 to 15, it tells you what you're getting right and wrong, and it'll give you a percentage, and then it helps you go to the next level. So that was a really, really great way for me to give students that interactive peer time. I'll show you one more. This is called Read Rhythm. But you might not be able to see what I'm... I'll mess up. Right? So it is a touchpad, which you don't see, but that I touch on the touchpad, I read the rhythm, the metronome starts, and they can then practice these rhythms continuously. Okay. So those are some of the examples. Thank you. And let's now just talk about what you can do in your classroom. So why don't, well, this is what I'd love for you to think about. I was hoping we'd have those big Post-it notes, but we can use paper. Maybe 2 or 3 at your table. Look at your friend and, oh,
They all have notability, so.
That's right.
Use something else then. Cool. And, yeah, so what I want you to think about is what group activities have you already done in your class? Maybe what are a few learning objectives? And how you can integrate the mobile device into that. And then I'm going to also post here. Here we go. What apps would you use? How will students interact? How will information be shared in class, out of class, both? And then here's Bloom's taxonomy. Excuse me. So think about something you've already done. And maybe one of your friends can search the iTunes store real quick to find an app.
Or you could use the apps that from the apps you found in this morning's session. They did it.
Do we have anyone who would like to report back on what activities? I know you're still talking. Some other people. Hello. Can I go jump, 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 jump? I can get your attention by playing on the piano. This group, I liked what you were talking about with the graph thing. Do you want to come up and share? Sure. Okay, just come and tell us.
Do you want me to set this up?
Yeah, if you can. We got a couple minutes. Yeah.
Oh, really? So something that I would typically do, oops, I didn't save it. There we go. So this is an app that I saw Sherry using this morning. She found this and showed it to me. It's basically a graphic calculator app, and you can graph multiple functions, and you can explore just zooming in and the features of an individual graph if you want. But one of the things that I like for my future secondary teachers to understand is the effects of different parameters on different kinds of functions. So understanding, for example, what the effect of the 2 has on the graph of the function to sine 3x, what effect the 3 has, and so forth on the graph. When you compare the graph of that function with just the basic sine function graph and so on. It's kind of nice to start with trig because it's almost super easy, really, to see the effects on the trig functions, especially for the parameter here that determines the amplitude of the function. It's harder to see the effects on graphs like log functions and so forth. So it's kind of a nice entry point.
What's that one called?
This one is Graphing Calculator.
Free graph.
It's free, yeah, it's free graphing calculator. Let's see if I can show it to you. So there it is. So right here, free graph calc. But that's an abbreviation. If you just type that in, you won't find it. So just type in free graphing calculator in the App Store and you'll find it.
What's teacher and what's student?
So this is cooperative, and so I downloaded the student version of the app and the teacher version of the app. Yeah.
Anyone else? Wanting to share? At least it gets you thinking, right? Eric just told me that you have, I guess, assignments this week, right? And one of them is picking an activity and writing learning objectives.
Right. So what I was thinking is, as I mentioned before, these next few days, the last few minutes of each concurrent session, we want to give you the opportunity to take that 4-column table, the course alignment plan, and any learning objectives any learning activities that you thought of that kind of go with particular learning objectives, to just take a minute and kind of write them down on that table. So what Nicole's had you do kind of feeds right into that. If you've been thinking about different apps and learning activities that you might use in your class with regard to collaborative learning and things like that, now would be a good time to just take that table out and drop the ideas down in a column or the row with the appropriate learning objective before you leave. So.
People in our classroom this morning or our table found there's this website called Teach with Your iPad, and it has, using Bloom's taxonomy, different programs for each level of learning.
Can you say
You want to mirror up there and mirror that?
Teach with your iPad. You put that in a Google search embedded, but then it's like .space.com.
this is an app or a website?
It's a website and it has all kinds of apps that help you in those different areas. So, but some of them are real super simple, like this easy numbers is probably more like grade school things. But some of them look more interesting. I didn't get spend a lot of
There's a lot of this resource. Kevin Wilson in my department found this resource. There's a link to it on the resources tab of the Google site for the Institute. And there's a lot of those resources that we find that come out of K-12. They do a lot of stuff in K-12 with like laptop or like iPad carts that they can bring into the room and distribute to the kids, and then they put them all back on the cart and put them away, kind of mobile computer labs using iPads. And so there's a lot of good resources like this that come out of K-12, and so sifting through the K-12-ish stuff and finding the nuggets that are useful in higher ed sometimes takes a little bit of thinking and filtering, but there's some really good stuff in there.
Where did you say that Teach with Your iPad thing was?
If you just do a Google search, it's called Teach with Your iPad. So if you just put up in Google search Teach with Your iPad, just
You can also find it, like I say, go to the resources on the Google site.
Oh, it's not Summer Institute thing, but
In the Summer Institute 2012 Google site. If you go there and then there's the resources tab across where you have schedule and discussion and so forth, those tabs.